Thank you. I too rise in support of the amendment, and I want to return to something that Senator Coleman said earlier in this discussion, which was giving discretion about the earlier release would not necessarily result in mistakes being made. And it's odd, there's moments in this process when I feel like I've gone through the looking glass. And I guess in some ways that's one of them. And the reason I feel that way, I've talked about discretion before, especially on the Human Services Committee, where it has occurred to me that we have greatly curtailed the number of decisions which we allow to be made by administrators, by executives. Gosh, we had a bill not too long ago that we had to do, that had something to do, if I recall, with changing a reporting requirement from 30 days to 45 days because we weren't giving enough time for certain work to be completed. And it's the kind of thing that I see and I think, why are we controlling, micromanaging these kinds of decisions? That, to my mind, is a trivial decision. That's exactly the sort of thing that we should be letting alone. And yet it seems to me that we tighten the screws on those kinds of decision-making by our administrative officers. And yet here we are today on the most important side of our responsibility, on the incarceration of violent criminals, saying, let's trust this system to make decisions. And we can do it because we're confident that the people that are making the decisions are going to make good decisions. I don't doubt that people try to make good decisions. But if I want to start giving latitude, if I want to start extending discretion to the executive branch, I think we should start way at the other end of it, on the purely administrative functions that we seem to be so determined to control. And that the last thing we should give discretion on is the release of violent criminals. And again, in the looking glass world, I feel like the people we represent would be amazed at the odd priorities that we are showing by relaxing requirements for sentencing of violent criminals, while we tighten requirements for reports and guidelines and transfers of children from one institution and all kinds of things, which I would like to, which are also important, but which I think we ought to trust people to take care of. And this is the last side of where that trust should be extended to. The second thing I wanted to mention, Senator Harp mentioned before in her speech, which has, I think, been on many of our minds, about redemption. I believe in that very much, but I believe that part of redemption is realizing that we really never can sufficiently pay ourselves for the things which we have done wrong. And I think those imprisoned, especially those imprisoned for serious crimes, that have come to see the seriousness of what they've committed, will acknowledge that there's no term to that punishment. There's no moment at which they can be said to have paid back the price for their crimes. I think there's crimes that fiscal restitution can be made for. But there's many other crimes of the sort that have been mentioned here today that no kind of restitution can be made out for, that time itself cannot redeem, that nothing in this world can redeem, although our hearts can change. And I think those are people who, should they have to serve the limits of their confinement, even when they have changed, and even when they have realized, and even when they have reached the point that they would never transgress so again, will not, in fact, object to what they have been sentenced to. And I don't think that we should make this change. And I think that Senator Welch's amendment in this particular case, again, continues what has been started by the amendment that Senator Looney offered, cutting out certain aspects of this change. It extends it to in a reasonable way to further violent crimes, And I think, again, the people of the state would thank us if we were to vote for this amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Will you remark further? Senator Coleman.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I rise in opposition to the amendment, and I guess I'm hoping against hope that we could cease to refer to this amendment or the bill as amended as an early release bill. I think that's a very misleading reference to that bill for many of the reasons that I've indicated in previous debate and discussion regarding the issues connected with this bill. This is, I think, more aptly to be described as a risk reduction earned credit bill, or a bill that provides incentives and motivations for inmates to participate in programs and services that make it more likely than not that when they are released, they can stay out of our correctional system. I'm intrigued by Senator Guglielmo's comments. I, at one time, worked in a correctional center, and maybe it'll come as a surprise to you, some of you, but there were some individuals that I encountered in a correctional center that made me say to myself, thank God for prisons. But this is not a bill that has anything to do with those individuals, nor with the individuals that Senator Guglielmo described. If those particular inmates are so recalcitrant and so hardcore, they're not going to be earning risk reduction credits, and the commissioner is not going to award risk reduction credits to them. And they're not even going to make it to the parole board. But the significant fact about what Senator Guglielmo said is that those inmates are going to max out too. And under law, there's going to come a time when the correctional system cannot hold them and has to release them. And wouldn't it make sense if we could, while they are in custody, if we could reach them or provide them some incentive in order to participate in programs